Hi there, welcome to the Basic Grammar Series, Chapter 3 Understanding Phrases and Clauses. In this lesson, we are going to learn about the phrases and clauses, their meaning, their definition, what are the similarities between these, what are the differences in phrases and clauses, how to distinguish between a phrase and a clause, the two types of clauses, independent and dependent clauses, and in the end, you'll also get a test to test your understanding of the concept. Let's begin. Phrases and clauses are both important group of words that make up sentences. In other words, a sentence is made up of phrases and clauses. What is a phrase? Consider a phrase as a group of words. A group of words that make some sense, but it doesn't make complete sense. When we say this group of words, they convey some sense to you, like on the table, my best friend, in the chair. So they make some sense, but they are unable to convey any complete thought or an idea as a sentence. So they are just the fragment, the part of a sentence. So the phrases, they cannot stand alone as a sentence. An important thing here is that the phrases, they never contain both the subject and the verb at the same time. Let's examine these group of words first. My best friend, in a corner, made of silk. All these words, they make some sense and they seem to be taken from some sentences, right? They are parts of sentence, but they do not convey the complete thought. The important thing here is that these phrases, they function as a single unit, as a part of speech, like noun, adjective, adverb, preposition, as in my best friend, functioning as a noun phrase, in a corner as a preposition phrase, made of silk as an adjective phrase, on this spot as an adverb phrase. So what do we learn from this? We learn the phrase is a group of words that stands as a single grammatical unit. Grammatical unit, what are grammatical units? Like adverbs, nouns, adjective. So they stand as a single grammatical unit, typically as a part of a sentence or a clause. They usually consist of article, preposition, noun, and they act as noun, adverb, adjective in a sentence. So we can define a phrase as a group of words which lacks the presence of both subject and a verb together and acts as a single grammatical unit in a sentence. When I say that the phrase can never contain both the subject and the verb, it doesn't mean that it will never have any subject or a verb, but they'll never have both of them together. Let's look at these phrases here. Will have been, finish the task. Now both of these phrases have verbs here. Will have been. All of these are verbs here. Finish the task. Finished. It contains a verb here, but it doesn't contain any subject. There is no subject that is doing these actions. So the actions are there, but the subject is missing. Now let's look at more examples here. Best friend, a plastic chair. Now see, best friend here, it can act as a subject. We do not know whether it's a subject or an object in a sentence because we do not have any action here. Similarly, in the second example, a plastic chair, there is no action attached here. It can be a subject in a sentence or it can be an object in a sentence. In all of these four examples here, either the verb is there or the subject is there, but both of these are not there together. So it's important to note that a phrase may contain a subject or a verb, but it will never contain both of these together. On that note, let's move on to the clauses. Like a phrase, a clause is also a group of words. But the important point here is a clause can make some sense or it can also make complete sense like a sentence. The presence of both subject and a verb is essential in a clause. A phrase cannot contain both the subject and a verb at the same time, whereas a clause will always contain a subject and a verb at the same time. Now, this is the most important feature to distinguish between a phrase and a clause. Now, a clause can sometimes act as a sentence, but it's not always the case. We can categorize clauses into mainly two types, independent clause and dependent clause. Independent clause is the one that can stand alone as a sentence, and it conveys a complete thought, a complete idea, and it's not dependent on any other clause or any other sentence to convey that thought. It requires no extra information to understand the thought or an idea. Therefore, an independent clause has a subject, a verb, and conveys a complete thought or an idea. These clauses can function entirely as a sentence on their own, but they can also be coupled with other clauses, either dependent or independent clauses, to make longer sentences. Let's take a look at these examples. Although it is raining, I'm going out for a run. Now, in this sentence, I'm going out for a run. It makes a complete sense and it contains a subject I, verb am going. So the action is there, the subject is there, and the thought is complete. So we can say I'm going out for a run is an independent clause. Let's take a look at the another one here. After I leave work, I'll stop at the grocery store. In this clause, we have the subject I, the action will stop, and it is making complete sense in itself. So it's an independent clause. I'll go to the party with you if you promise we'll be home by 11 p.m. I'll go to the party with you. It functions as a complete sense. It's conveying a complete thought. It has got a subject, I. It has got the verb, will go. So this is an independent clause. The coffee was brewing because it was early morning. Let's take this fragment, the coffee was brewing. It has got a subject, the coffee, the verb, was brewing, and it's conveying a complete thought. So it's an independent clause. Now let's see what are dependent clauses. A dependent clause contains a subject and a verb. It conveys a thought, an idea, but that thought or idea is not completely independent on its own. It needs an extra support from another clause to make it complete. It is called dependent because it is dependent on another clause to convey the complete idea. From the earlier examples, consider these clauses. Although it is raining. Now here if I say although it is raining, it is not conveying a complete thought. After I leave work. So you will ask, what will you do after you leave work? It has got the subject I. It has got the verb leave, but it has also got a conjunction after. So it is not conveying the complete thought. It is dependent on the other independent clause, I will stop at the grocery store, to convey the complete sense. Similarly, if you promise we'll be home by 11 p.m., it's a dependent clause, dependent on the independent clause, I'll go to the party, to make complete sense on its own. Because it was early morning. Now this is a dependent clause. It depends on the independent clause, the coffee was brewing. Now important point to note here is what makes the dependent clauses dependent is the use of conjunctions like when, because, so, if, after, although, since. Look at the following examples. I could not study as the lights went out. As the lights went out. Now here this dependent clause is beginning with the conjunction as. So this conjunction, this use of the conjunction as is what is making this clause dependent on the other clause. Have some pancakes in case you are hungry. In case you are hungry. Now here, in case, this use of conjunctions is making this clause dependent on another clause. So now that you have learned about the phrases and clauses, let's test your understanding with this group of words. Let's see if you are able to identify as whether these are phrases or clauses. You can pause the screen, take the test, and then play it again to check your answers. The first one here is, she took care of everyone at home. It has got a subject, she, and a verb, took care. It is a clause, meaning there is no attached conjunction to it, so it's an independent clause. As fast as possible. Now there is no subject in this group of words, so it's a phrase. Although I did not get much sleep last night. I is a subject, did not get verb, but it also has a conjunction although, which makes it a dependent clause. Going on adventure, we have a verb here going, but there is no subject in this. So it's a phrase. The last sandwich. There is no subject. There is no subject or a verb in these words. So it's a phrase. When I met you. There is a subject I and a verb met, but there is also a conjunction attached when. So it's a dependent clause. Clever ideas. There is no subject, there is no verb, it's a phrase. So I took a day of work. I is a subject, took is a verb, but there is also presence of a conjunction. So it is a dependent clause. As fast as possible. There is a verb, fast, there is no subject, it is a phrase. While we were waiting at the bus stop. We is the subject, verb waiting is the verb, while is a conjunction, it's a dependent clause. So that was all for today. I hope that you enjoyed today's lesson. If you have liked this video, then I would request you to please subscribe to my channel and share this video with your friends if you think it can benefit them. If you have any doubts, any queries, you can leave a comment. I'll be happy to respond to your queries, and do tell me how you like this lesson. Thank you so much.